When the initial Stellar Blade teasers were revealed a few years ago under the temporary name of Project Eve, I remember thinking that the game probably would be a generic single-player hack-and-slash type experience that most people would play, have a good time, but probably forget about after a few days. Because after all, hot girl game fun, but hot girl game no take serious. Sorry, my Neanderthal brain kicked in for a moment there. But after Shift Up released the playable demo on PS5, I realized that my initial presuppositions were almost entirely incorrect. And that's a good thing, as I realized that two things really stood out to me in this game that have shown me not only the developers know what they are doing, but that this game has some serious potential to become a cult classic inside of this PS5 generation.
Well, that's because you have big jugs.
So, according to Wikipedia, the overarching plot states that humanity is driven down from Earth after losing a war against alien invaders called the Natiba. In order to reclaim their lost home, Eve and her squad are deployed from the colony to fight the Natibia and to take back Earth. Eventually, Eve meets a survivor named Adam, who leads her to Zion, humanity's last surviving city on Earth. Eve then makes contact with the Elder Oracle and establishes relationships with the residents of Zion in order to further her mission to save mankind and reclaim Earth. And the way that it works in this slice of the demo, which I presume is the beginning of the game, we played a certain section where we see the colony members and Eve making their way down to Earth, and then when they land, everybody inside of this colony has been slaughtered by the Natiba, including the other woman who helps you through the tutorial stage of this process. Shortly after, Adam, the other survivor, saves Eve and nurses her back to health, and now it's up to them to continue the mission by saving Earth from these wretched creatures. So yeah, it isn't exactly an original story. It doesn't really have to be though. It just has to be good enough, as the art direction and the world building are actually superbly crafted in my opinion. Things just look desolate and bleak, which really sells this whole end of the world atmosphere, and there is an interesting contrast between the art style of Earth, in contrast, I guess I'm going to use that word twice here, with the futuristic mechanization of Eve and her people. Stellar Blade also appears to have a variety of worlds that we are going to explore, as just in the early stages of the demo, we saw a beach undergoing the hardships of this futuristic warfare, and a cityscape that looks similar to The Last of Us in terms of aesthetic, and we even saw that aesthetic evolve a little bit as we progressed to the end of the demo. And after we complete the final boss fight, Shift Up provides a preview of what is to come, and it really looks like we are only scratching the surface of what this story and world building and environmental storytelling has to offer the player. And the art design creativity doesn't stop there, as the monsters that we have to fight are also pushing against the design of Earth and Adam and Eve, which I literally just realized why they are named Adam and Eve while writing this, because they're the last man and woman on Earth. I'm an idiot. Anyways, the monsters are grotesque and quite unsettling, which is super interesting to me because the game really sells this beautiful feminine aesthetic through Eve with the naturalistic biological atmosphere of Earth, and then it's very futuristic, very grounded, but then it's also very alien. There's a lot of angles coming at this game, and I find it to be quite interesting. I don't think I've really ever seen a style like this where so many of the artistic inspirations are completely antithetical to one another, and I really like what they're doing here. So, and on top of all of that, it was quite a surprise to see how violent everything was as well, because the gruesome level of some of these enemies are insane, and when Eve is attacking them and fighting them and doing some of her finishing moves, there is a ton of blood and gore and violence and chopping off of limbs. It is brutal, which leads me to the next part of this preview, which is the combat. And again, to my surprise, this game was actually kind of hard, and it's at a good level of difficulty as well. It isn't soul-crushing like Lies of P or another Souls-like game on the market, and it isn't just a cinematic hack-and-slash single-player narrative like God of War Ragnarok or something in that niche, as there really is a nice middle ground in between the punishing nature of combat difficulty and the approachability of the gameplay for players who want more of a chill experience. But again, I was really surprised by this. I think the combat feels really good and very impactful, which is in part to that great sound design that the game is bringing to the table, along with the music. I love the music. It really sells this, I don't know, this weird aesthetic that they're going for. It really just has a nice, lovely blend. I love the feeling of the game. It's super solid, and I think most people are going to love it as well when they give this demo a shot. There is a mix of Souls-like features, so you have to parry and dodge attacks, and when you land successful parries, that will help to deplete the enemy's stagger meter, which opens them up for even more attacks. Enemies also also have a variety of offensive styles, which I was a little confused by, as it seems the yellow indicator means that you can't stop the attacks, but red means I think you can dodge. Then there's a blue one, and then I also saw a purple flashing indicator, which I don't even know what the purple one is. So there's a lot to learn when it comes to the actual combat itself. Eve also has a combo move set, which I wasn't really expecting either. So you can mix and match your heavy and light attacks, just like in a God of War type game, which will allow Eve to perform different combo sets and beat the hell out of her adversary. There are, of course, the obligatory overpowered cooldown abilities where you hold down one of the trigger buttons. In this case, I think it was L1, and then you can press circle, square, X, or triangle along with it to unleash your ultimate ability. And it seems like these are going to be very important, as they do a good amount of damage to bosses and can even wipe out hordes of popcorn enemies, or, smaller enemies that you just take out with one giant move. Eve also has various ways to heal so that you can stack certain health items in your inventory and save them to your health itemization wheel and use them throughout battle. And this same system applies to your lethal equipment. So things like grenades, stun grenades, all that good stuff are able to be in an itemization wheel as well, allowing you a pretty diverse combat portfolio, if I say so myself. So there's a lot to learn here, a lot to dive into, and I'm super excited about it because I thought it was all going to be very, very surface level. And the last thing about gameplay I wanted to discuss here was that there are a few more Souls-like features here. There are bonfires, or in this case, they're kind of encampments, and there's multiple levels of them. I encountered two through the demo's playthrough, a standard encampment and then a camp. I think it's called like a camp station where soldiers were last camped out, so you can utilize their materials. And in this place, Eve can save and heal up, and the game considers this like a progression point in the story as well. So you'll get certain story beats that will come up from Adam, and you'll get flashbacks from Eve. You can also buy things, level up your skill trees, which there appear to be a ton of skill trees. I think I saw 4 of them, which means that there could be multiple playthroughs of this game with a new game plus, which could make Eve super overpowered and allow you to have even more range with your combat encounters. So that's super awesome. Enemies do reset after you save at these camps, meaning that if you killed the brute a few moments ago, healing up is only going to bring that sucker back. So you got to be tactful, which again, wasn't expecting any of this at all. And it doesn't feel punishing when you have to fight these enemies over again. It feels more akin to Jedi Survivor, a game like that, where the system is, of course, influenced and referencing, Dark Souls or Elden Ring, but it's kind of slapping that easy mode sticker on it as well, because even if you die in a boss fight or at some certain cinematic section of the game, it appears that you will restart fully healed with a majority of your items restocked, except for, I believe, some of the lethal equipment. So again, this means that Shift Up is taking this game very seriously, and they have thoughtfully considered how they wanted to balance things out, and they're treading that sweet spot very carefully, which I believe is the right way to go. Not every game needs to be simple and easy like a God of War, and not every game needs to be super punishing like a Souls-like. There has to be a middle ground sometimes for fans that don't want to invest all of their time into every AAA title that comes out, because it's impossible to do so, but gamers still like a challenge. They're tired of being served that easy nonsense type gameplay that is tied to a battle pass where there's never any real sense of progression or challenge or intrigue when it comes to the gameplay. It's just simple, mindless pressing square until you get to the next encounter and doing it all over again. This game seems to be a lot more tactful and, thought out than I ever would have considered. And the reason I think I didn't take this game as seriously as it's appearing to be is, they're trying to sell that, sexy waifu, situation for gamers that are into that. And I just figured that they were going to exploit that aspect of it, but they're really not. I'm going to take that back. They definitely are. Because if you go and you look at some of the customizable outfits that Eve has, they're not holding back. They're going full tilt with that whole aspect of Eve and her sexuality. So if that's something that you're interested in or you're not interested in, just note that it's part of the game. But either way, I thought that was going to be pretty much the only focus, and it would just be a simple game on rails. It's definitely not like that, and I really had a great time with this demo, and I am more stoked for the game than I initially was, which is exactly what a demo should do. It should indicate for the player if this game is for them or it isn't, and from the combat to the enemy and boss encounters, and from the gameplay systems to the customization, it all feels very familiar, but done in a way that isn't trying to be any other game other than itself. So I would love to know what you guys think about the demo in the comments below. Did you play it? Do you feel the same way that I feel? Do you think it sucks? Do you think that the game is going to fail, or do you think it's going to become a cult classic like I do for this generation? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you are interested in any other reviews on this channel, we have a ton of content from last year and this year that's upcoming, so be sure to check that out. Videos will be popping up on your screen right now, and I'll see you guys in the next one.